All glory to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the auspiciousness of the entire world. O Lord, please place your feet in my heart. Please give to me this charity. Glory, glory to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees. Anyone who hears about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will certainly attain pure devotional service and will begin to cry. Now, this pastime takes place just after, it is in sequence to the last pastime we heard at the retreat, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had gone to Gaya and taken initiation from Sripadishwara Puri. And then he began to exhibit ecstatic love for Krishna. Previously, he was acting as if he was just a scholar, proud, arrogant. But then, when he began to exhibit his ecstasies in devotional service, he became very, very, very humble and unlimitedly deep. Of course, Mahaprabhu is always the Supreme Lord, but these are his pastimes. And when he came back to Navadvip, to Sridham Mayapur, he spoke to the devotees and began exhibiting ecstasy that had never been seen before. Ecstasy in the mood of Srimati Radharani, feeling the deepest separation from Krishna. And thus, he began chanting Krishna's holy names with his devotees. And thus, the Hare Krishna movement, the Sankirtan movement, began. When Mahaprabhu returned from Gaya after taking initiation from Sripad Ishwara Puri, he began to exhibit symptoms of his great love for Krishna. And seeing these symptoms, the devotees felt their hearts fill with wonder. In this way, with his true identity as the Supreme Lord concealed, that same Lord Krishna, who is now the fair and handsome Lord Chaitanya, in that way he stayed in Navadvip. And no one had the power to know that the Supreme Lord had descended to this world and was staying in their midst. And thus, after returning from Gaya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in great ecstasy, he went to the home of his teacher, Gangadas Pandit, and bowed down before his feet. His teacher respectfully picked him up and embraced him. Now, even though Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was practically a youth, a young boy himself, because of his unlimited learning, because of his charisma, he had a separate school under the guidance of Gangadas Pandit. And in that school, he would teach so many students who came to his shelter by the bank of the Ganga each day. And Gangadas said, "Now you have returned to us from Gaya. My son, you are both fortunate and you are glorious. Because of you, both the families of your father and mother have attained liberation. Your students all await you. And even if the Devata, the demigod Lord Brahma himself, were to order them, they would not open their books without your presence. So for today, go home, and tomorrow you can resume your teaching on the bank of the Ganga. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit, bowed down before Gangadas and then left. And rapt, absorbed in tasting the nectar of Lord Krishna, that night, the Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, did not sleep because he was overwhelmed with feelings of separation from his Lord Krishna. And the next day at dawn, he went to the Ganga to bathe, and immediately his students surrounded him. But no word other than Krishna, no words other than Krishna, Krishna came from his divine mouth. His students were unable to understand the great change that had overwhelmed their teacher. And on their request, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat down to instruct them. And when the students, following the tradition, as they opened their books, as they sat down with their legs crossed and their hands folded, as good students do, and their knees not in the air, before opening their books, they said, Hare, Hare. They said the Lord's names. Because the way that you still see this in Vrindavan to this day, when the students go to a more traditional school, they keep their books, their textbooks, in a red cloth and tied up. Did anyone ever see that? Yeah. And then, when it was time, the teacher would give them permission, and after being respectful to their teacher, the teacher would give them permission and saying the Lord's name to make the opening of their books auspicious, to make their learning auspicious. They untied the books and opened them up. But as soon as they said the name of the Lord, the students said, Hare, Hare. The son of Sachi, Sri Sachinandana, became filled with bliss. And he fell from external consciousness into a deep, ecstatic trance just from hearing the name of Krishna. And enwrapped in meditating upon Lord Krishna and casting his merciful glance upon all who were present, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, deep in a trance of ecstasy, began to speak. All grammatical sutras, all rules, all history, all commentaries are in truth, they are names of Krishna. The holy name of Krishna is eternal. Shastra, the scriptures, do not describe anything but Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the creator, the maintainer, and the destroyer of all in existence. Brahma, Shiva, and all others are his servants. And anyone who speaks of anything other than Krishna is wasting his life. Mahaprabhu was in ecstasy, and he said, all Shastra declares that devotion to Krishna's feet, that is the true treasure, the wealth of life. And only teachers who are bewildered by Maya illusion, they avoid devotion to walk on a different path. And a person in his heart who does not call out Krishna's names, such as Krishna, who is all attractive, Karuna Sagara, who is an ocean of mercy, Jagat Jivan, who is the life of the world, Sevaka Vatsala, affectionate to his servants, and Nanda Gopananandana, the son of Nandagopa. He may be learned and he may study all the scriptures, but a person who does not chant the names of the Lord, his destination is not good. But on the other hand, even if a poor and lowly person with many, many faults, if he chants Krishna's name, his holy name, he will certainly go to the Lord's abode. That is the teaching of all the scriptures. And whoever doubts this will suffer. Lord Krishna is so kind, Mahaprabhu in ecstasy said. He gave liberation to Putana. And how can anyone reject him and meditate on someone else? Lord Krishna gave liberation to Aghasura. To attain what great pleasure do people renounce glorifying Krishna? A person who will not chant Krishna's holy names, a name that purifies all the worlds, must suffer. That is his fate. A person who will not sing Lord Krishna's holy names and dance a holy name that makes Brahma and the demigods wild in a great festival of bliss, he creates for himself an inauspicious future. Persons intoxicated by wealth, learning, and their aristocratic families do not understand the glories of the holy name of the Lord. That name rescued Ajamil, who is a great sinner. Oh, my brothers, oh, my sisters, listen to my words. Please, in ecstasy, Mahaprabhu was calling out to everyone. Please worship the priceless treasure of the lotus feet of Krishna. Goddess Lakshmi yearns to serve those feet. Lord Shiva is a pure servant of those feet. And from those feet, Goddess Ganga is manifested. Oh, my brothers, please, please make that your desire. Make that your aspiration. Desire to serve those lotus feet. He was speaking to his students who had opened their books expecting a lesson in grammar. Instead, they got a Bhagavatam class. They listened, though, with a focused mind and overcome with emotion and in an ecstatic internal trance. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu next began to explain grammatical rules in such a way that each word revealed Lord Krishna as the supreme truth. And after some moments, the Lord went from his internal consciousness to external consciousness. And he was embarrassed. He said nothing more. And then the Lord asked, how did I explain the grammatical sutras, the rules today? The students replied, we did not understand anything. You said that every word in the scriptures means Krishna. Who is qualified to understand your commentaries? So that is a way of saying your commentaries are so deep, no one can understand them. Laughing, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, oh, my brothers, oh, Bhai, tie up your books for the day and let us go bathe in the Ganga. And on hearing the Lord's words, all the students tied their books up, and accompanied by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they went to the Ganga. And like a full moon rising from the ocean, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu played in the Ganga's waters. Thus, after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord, returned from Gaya, he assumed the role of a Vaishnava who saw Krishna's presence everywhere, in everything, and he did not see anything else. Whether he was eating, sleeping, or awake, he did not speak about anything but Krishna with his ears. He heard Krishna's names only day and night. And with his mouth, he spoke the words, Krishna Chandra, without stopping. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forgot the nectar of learning, of his scholarship, for he was only attracted to Krishna. But early each morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's students gathered for class, and he who was the master of the three worlds sat with them and lectured. However, nothing but Krishna came to his tongue. One student asked, "What is the perfection of Varna?" Varnas mean the letter of the alphabet, the Sanskrit letters. And Mahaprabhu replied, "Lord Narayan is the perfection of all the Varnas," meaning to know Lord Narayan is the purpose of Varnashrama. Another student said, "How could Lord Narayan, the Supreme Lord, be the perfection of the letters of the alphabet?" And the Lord replied, "The Lord, by his glance, just by his glance, he created the Varnas, the letters of the alphabet." Another student said, "Oh, Pandit, please give the right explanation." And the Lord said, "You should remember Lord Krishna at every moment. You should remember Krishna. I have described to you how to worship Krishna. Worship him with every moment of time. And this is the correct teaching of all the Shastras. In their beginning, in their middle, and their end, Shastra only teaches the worship of Krishna." Hearing the Lord's explanation, the students became a little disrespectful, and they began to laugh. And one student said, "I think the words of the people of Navadvipa are true. The cause of your explanations is an imbalance of the life airs. Your explanations have changed so much since you've returned from Gaya. Why do you now speak in this way?" And the Lord replied, "This is the actual teaching of all Shastra. And if you cannot understand the truth of my words now, please think deeply about what I have said. And each of you should go to a secluded place and study your books. And then later in the afternoon, we will meet again and discuss all these points." And hearing the Lord's words, the surprised students tied up their books and they left. And after this morning class, but before the afternoon class, some of the students went to Gangadas Pandit, the Lord's teacher, and told him of the Lord's behavior and his words. They said, "Nimai Pandit said that all words in the Shastra refer only to Krishna. Since he has returned from Gaya, he talks only of Krishna. He does not speak about anything else, and the hairs of his body remain erect. And he is always chanting Krishna, 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 Krishna. And sometimes he laughs, and sometimes he screams in ecstasy. Each day he only teaches us that all grammatical rules, somehow or another, they describe Krishna. and we do not have the power to understand his explanations. Oh, Holy Gangadas, oh, Pandit, please tell us, what should we do? Dhruv, just imagine if your teachers started doing this. And hearing the students complain, the Brahmana Gangadas, who was the crest jewel of all teachers, he smiled and he said, this afternoon I will speak to Nimai Pandit. And that afternoon, all the students again happily assembled to hold their class with their teacher, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Gangadas Pandit arrived. And immediately the Lord bowed down and placed upon his head the dust of his teacher's feet. And Gangadas, in return, blessed him by saying, may you attain true learning. And then, in a private place, Gangadas said, oh, Vishwambar, you are like my son. You are my son. And please hear my words. It is a great fortune that you are now teaching such good, pure Brahmana students. And your maternal grandfather is Sri Nilambara Chakravarti. And your father is Sri Jagannath Mishra. Both your mother's family and your father's family, everyone is a scholar. And you yourself are expert in commenting on grammar, Vyakarana, and other scriptures. But if you renounce serious study, will that aid? Will that help you attain devotion to the Lord? Are your father and maternal grandfather not learned? Are they not devotees of the Lord? Understanding this, you should apply yourself to the path of scholarship. It is by study and learning that one becomes a Vaishnava Brahmana. And if you remain uneducated, how will you know right from wrong? Please understand this point. Please continue to chant Krishna, 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 but also please continue to properly teach and properly study. Now please sit with your students and teach them the grammatical sutras and the other scriptures. Teach them in a proper way. The Lord replied to his teacher, O my teacher, O Gangadas Pandit, by the mercy of your feet, no one in Navadvip has the power to even debate with me. What to speak of defeat me? And you are correct. I will from now on explain the sutras just as I have previously done before I returned from Gaya. And no one in Navadvip will be able to challenge my explanations. And no one will be able to prove his own explanations in front of me. I will sit down in the middle of Navadvip town and I will lecture and I will see who has the power to find fault with my explanations. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then bowed before the feet of Gangadas Pandit, and after hearing the Lord's words, Gangadas became happy. What good fortune was attained by Gangadas Pandit, the Supreme Lord, who is worshipped by the 14 worlds? He himself became the student of Gangadas. And after hearing from Gangadas Pandit, Lord Chaitanya returned to his students, and surrounded by them, he looked like the full moon surrounded by a host of stars. And the Lord walked with his students directly to Navadvip town, and he sat down at the entrance of the city. He tied his garments properly, and he began explaining grammatical sutras. He would prove one thing, and then he would break what he had just proved. And then he would prove it again. All the different interpretations that he gave, he would establish and break and challenge anyone to either reestablish what he had broken or break what he had established. And no one came forward. He challenged them in this way. The Lord said, in Kali Yuga, even a fool with no basic knowledge of even Sanskrit Sandhi, he claims that he is a Bhattacharya. A fool who does not even know the meaning of words will try to debate Nyaya, logic, and philosophy. And none of those fools can defeat me. I will see who can prove what I break or break apart what I have proven. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the master of all the universes, he spoke, and he spoke, and he spoke. And he was wrapped in meditation on the grammar lessons that he was teaching. Lecturing and lecturing about grammar according to the instructions of Gangadas Pandit. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued speaking from early afternoon until the afternoon ended, and 2 hours of the night after sunset had passed. And still the Lord continued speaking. He would not stop. But at that time, by divine arrangement, a very fortunate Brahmana whose name was Bhurijana, he walked nearby. He was a friend of the Lord's father. What was the Lord's father's name? Jagannath Mishra. Both were born in the same village, so he was quite senior. And Bhurijana had great love for Srimad Bhagavatam. And at the moment he passed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Founder-Acharya, he was lovingly, with great devotion, reciting one verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It was a verse about when the Brahmins in a place on the border of Mathura and Vrindavan, Bartrol is the name of the place. When the cowherd boys, this is described in the 23rd chapter of the 10th canto, cowherd boys had begged food for Krishna and Balaram, and the Brahmins would not give anything, but their wives, being devotees, they gave everything for the pleasure of Krishna and Balaram. And carrying all that food, they went with the cowherd boys to just where Krishna and Balaram were, and suddenly, for the first time, they saw him, Krishna. He was standing with his elbow on the shoulder of a friend, Sridham. And in his other hand, he was twirling a lotus flower as he stood. And as he twirled the lotus flower, the hearts of those Brahmanis also twirled. And they said this verse: the wives of the Brahmanas saw Krishna wearing a garment which glittered like gold. And Krishna was wearing Vanamala, a garland of forest flowers, and atop of his head was a peacock feather. And he was painted with the minerals found in Vrindavan, and he looked exactly like a dancing actor on a theatrical stage, Natabara. And the Brahmin's wife saw him as he kept one hand on the shoulder of his friend, and in the other held a lotus flower, and his ears were decorated actually with gunjamala earrings, and he was wearing tilak, and he had the most charming of smiles. And Ratnagarbhacharya, as Mahaprabhu Nimai Pandit was lecturing on grammar, he went by with great devotion, singing this verse again and again in devotion with happiness, and hearing this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at once fell to the ground, unconscious. His students were astonished. And after a moment, the Lord suddenly jumped up and repeated, saying, "Say the verse again, say the verse again, say it again." He then fell to the earth and began rolling on the ground, saying, "Say it again, please. Say it again." And the Brahmin again and again repeated the verse. And an enchanting ocean of ecstasy rose up within Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the tears from his eyes sprinkled the ground. He wept, he trembled, his bodily hairs stood erect. And seeing the Lord's ecstatic happiness, the Brahmana Ratnagarbha again recited the verse. And seeing the Brahmana's devotion, the Lord embraced him. And Ratnagarbha became filled with ecstatic love. And he fell to the ground and tightly held the Lord's lotus feet, tears flowing from his eyes. Thus, Ratnagarbhacharya had now been caught in Lord Chaitanya's net of love. "Say it again." "Say it again," Lord Chaitanya loudly demanded. And observing the Lord's mood, the townspeople all had gathered. They became filled with wonder, and they bowed down to offer respect. But Gadadhar Pandit, however, wished to cover the Lord's ecstasy. He quickly stepped forward and requested Ratnagarbha to cease speaking the verse. The Brahmin stopped, and everyone sat down, surrounding Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who after some time returned to external consciousness. "Did I act recklessly?" the Lord asked. "Tell me what had happened. Please tell me what I did. Tell me what I said. What has happened?" And the students replied, "You are glorious, and you are learned. What power do we have to say anything about you?" And now, in external consciousness and his ecstatic emotions suppressed, the Lord went with everyone to the Ganga. And after first offering obeisances to Ganga Maya, and then placing some Ganga water on his head, the Lord looked just like the son of Nanda Maharaj with his cowherd boyfriends. And he sat with his companions on the Ganga bank. And after a while, everyone took their leave and returned to their homes. And Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also returned to his home. And he who was the master of all the worlds first honored prasadam and then enacted his transcendental pastime of taking rest.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Everyone sing. And as soon as morning appeared, the students of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again arrived at the Ganga. They sat down and began studying their books. And when the Lord arrived, he quickly bathed in the Ganga and he sat down and he began to teach. But he would only speak about Krishna and his service. One student asked, "Please explain verb dhatus, verbal roots." And the Lord replied, "All words are the potency of Krishna." "Please listen," he said. "Look at a king. He has a splendid body. He's decorated with gold ornaments. He is glorious with sandal paste. And the people may say his words are the words of Yamaraj, or even the words of the goddess Lakshmi Devi. But still, what happens to such a king when that which allows his body to function, the dhatus, his life force, what happens to the king when his dhatus disappear, are gone? Where does the handsomeness of his limbs then go? The same body that has been respected will now be burned to ashes or buried in the earth. It is Lord Krishna that is living in all bodies as the dhatus, which are his potencies. It is therefore Krishna. It is Krishna that one loves. It is ultimately to Krishna that one should be devoted. Although ordinary teachers may argue, the statement you have made is true, or another statement is false, they do not understand that it is Krishna that is actually the essence of life. Oh, students, please apply your mind to this point. There may be a very honorable person before whom I bow to offer respects, but when his dhatu, that which sustains his body, leaves him, I bathe even if I have touched his body. A son may very happily embrace his father, but when his father's dhatus leave, the son must place a fire on his father's head. Those dhatus, the elements of life, are the potency of Krishna. It is therefore ultimately Krishna. It is Krishna. It is Krishna that is loved by everyone. And also the verbs are the dhatus, and it is the verb that gives the life to a sentence. The Mahaprabhu was also speaking about grammar in this way, as he's making these very, very heavy points. And then he said, "Who has the power to refute my words?" Lord Krishna's potency is supremely pure. He alone is worthy of our worship. Oh, my brothers, become firmly devoted to Krishna. Chant Krishna's names. Worship Krishna. And hear Krishna's names. And day and night meditate upon Krishna's feet. And Yamaraj, death itself, has no power over anyone who offers water and durva grass to Lord Krishna's feet. Worship the feet of Nanda's son, for those feet gave liberation to Agasura, Bakasura, Putana. And even though Ajamil was thinking of his son, whose name was Narayana, he remembered Narayana. And for this reason, he was saved despite his sinful activities. And for this reason, he went to Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. Oh, everyone, worship Lord Krishna's feet. Lord Shiva serves Krishna's feet. Goddess Lakshmi respectfully serves Krishna's feet. Ananta Shesha chants the glories of Krishna's feet. Place a straw between your teeth. With great humility, you also worship Krishna's feet. As long as the dhatus or life force are within your body, engage in devotional service to Krishna's lotus feet. Krishna is your mother. Krishna is your father. Krishna is your life. It is Krishna who is your wealth. Therefore, I say that everyone should grasp the lotus feet of Krishna and declare to Sri Krishna, I give my body and my thoughts. Thus the Lord, accepting the role of his own servant, he described his own glories. And 6 hours passed, and he did not stop. And all the students, they listened so carefully, captivated, enchanted by the Lord's words. And no one spoke one word. After some time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to external consciousness, and he felt a little bit embarrassed. And he looked at the faces of his students, and he said, today, how did I explain the sutras about dhatus, about verbal roots? And the students replied, you actually gave the correct explanation. And who could contradict your explanations? Whatever you say is truth, and what others teach is not truth. The Lord then asked, what explanation did I give? Please tell me. And the students replied, you said that dhatus indicated Krishna. Your explanation of sutras and commentaries, every day they only speak about Krishna. And when you hear verses glorifying Krishna, you act in such a way that causes us to think that you are not a mere human being. And the Lord asked, what did I do? And the students replied, it was a great wonder. The hairs of your body stood erect. And we have not seen this in anyone else. And yesterday, when in the town you were lecturing, a Brahmana read a Bhagavatam verse aloud, and hearing this Bhagavatam verse, you at once fell unconscious. And there was no life left in any of your limbs. And we were very surprised. And when you regained consciousness, you trembled, you wept, and tears were flowing from your eyes like the Ganga flows. 100 men could not have held you still. And from your head to your feet, the hairs of your body stood erect, and your fair form was covered with perspiration, saliva, and dust. And gazing at you, everyone was filled with wonder. And some who saw you said, this person must be Lord Narayan himself. And someone else said, he must be Vyas, Sukadev, Narada, or Prahlad. He has the Lord's mercy as much as they captured the Lord's mercy. The students continued. We gathered around you, and we held you still. And after some moments, you regained external consciousness, but you did not know any of this. And we will tell you something more. And please listen with great attention. For the past 10 days, ever since you have returned from Gaya, Your lectures on grammar have only described Krishna's holy names and Krishna's devotional service. And we've been afraid to tell you this because no one has the strength to challenge the meanings that you have offered. And the Lord said, 10 days without studies? Was it not your duty to inform me? And the students replied, your lectures were correct. They were true. It is true that Krishna is described in all the scriptures. It is true, Vedescha Savaraham Eva Vedyo. It is Krishna that is described in the all scriptures. He is the essence. And if we cannot understand it, it is our fault. You explain that Krishna is the root of knowledge, and it is only because of our past bad karma, because of our past misdeeds, that in our hearts we could not understand this. Hearing the words of his students, the Lord was pleased. But he said, "Oh, my brothers, I will now tell you what causes me to speak in this way. But please do not tell anyone else." So do you all promise not to tell? Do you promise? You? Okay, do you promise? Well, then you have to go out maybe. Do you promise? Don't tell anyone. Please listen. Wherever I look, I see a darkish boy who plays his flute. And every word that I hear with my ears is the holy name of Krishna. And in every place I see only the holy abode of Krishna. But it's clear to me that from today onward, I will be no longer able to speak about grammar. You may go to any other teacher that you like, you can learn from him, but I cannot talk about anything other than Krishna. Now I have revealed to you my heart, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. And after speaking these words, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to weep. He then tied up his books. And as he did so, the students bowed to him. And they said, "We have studied under you. How could we study under anyone else?" And they too began to weep. "We will keep the lectures we heard from your mouth in our hearts, birth after birth. They will be our meditation. How could we study under another teacher? Whatever we have learned from you, it is sufficient for us." With folded hands, they called out the names of Lord Hari, and they tied up their books. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was the jewel of the Brahmanas, he began weeping. And then one by one, he embraced each and every one of his students, bowing their heads and weeping. The students felt that they were drowning in an ocean of transcendental bliss. With a choked voice, the son of Sachi blessed all of his students. He said, "If I ever one day become a true servant of Krishna, then I will pray that all of your desires become fulfilled. Please, all of you, take shelter of Krishna Please fill your voices with Krishna's holy names. Please always hear Krishna's holy names with your ears. And please know that it is Krishna who is your great treasure, and He is your life's breath. What you have learned so far, that is good enough. Don't strive to read and learn from so many books. Don't. But rather, please gather together and chant Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Chant Hare Krishna. And by Lord Krishna's mercy, by His mercy, then all knowledge will be manifest within you. You are all my friends, birth after birth, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. And Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur, who has written all of this in Chaitanya Bhagavat, he says, bowing down, I offer respectful obeisances to the feet of these fortunate students, for they are Lord Krishna's eternal servants. And if this were not so, how could they have studied under the Lord Himself? And anyone who sees a person who directly saw the Lord's pastimes of scholarship will become freed from the bondage of birth and death. Vrindavan Das continues, I am the greatest of sinners, and that is why I was not born at a time when I could have seen these blissful pastimes. Thus, I have been cheated by my fate. O Supreme Lord, O Sri Gauranatai, O Radha Ballava, O Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi, please be merciful and allow your pastimes of scholarship to stay always in my heart. Vrindavan Das Thakur prays. Although the Lord's pastimes of scholarship are eternal and they have neither beginning nor end, nevertheless, they in this way ended. And the ending of these pastimes signal the beginning of His pastimes of holding Sankirtan in each evening in Sri Navadvip Dham, Sri Dham Mayapur. In the four directions stood weeping students with tears gliding down their cheeks and their necks. And the merciful Lord said to them, we will now make perfect that which you have heard and read for so many days. How? Inquired the students. And the Lord replied, by chanting the holy names of Krishna. And the students asked, how shall we chant the holy names? And in response to this question, the son of Mother Sachi, Sachinandana, he began to sing and he taught them. Hari Haraye Namaha. Hari Haraye. Hari Haraya Namaha. Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Gopala Govinda Rama Sri Madhusudana. Gopala Govinda. Govinda Rama Sri Madhusudana Gopala Govinda Gopala Govinda Rama Sri Madhusudana You do it? Gopala Govinda Rama Sri Madhusudana Gopala Govinda Sing Hare Krishna. Sing Hare Krishna. Sing Hare Krishna. Clapping his hands. The Lord chanted his own holy names with his students. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then entered a trance. And he again began tasting the nectar of his holy names. Chant, chant, the Lord called out in all the directions. And the Lord began tasting the nectar of his own holy names. Again and again he fell to the ground. And hearing that kirtan, all the Vaishnavas who lived in the neighboring homes ran to where the Lord and his students were chanting. And seeing the Lord's ecstatic trance, the devotees, the Vaishnavas felt great wonder and happiness filled their hearts. Hare Rama. Just harmonium. And all the Vaishnavas said, now there will be a great kirtan in the town of Nadia, and that kirtan will fill the world. And when Lord Chaitanya returned to external consciousness, he again and again chanted Krishna's names. And even though he was in external consciousness, he did not talk. He would not speak about external things. He approached the Vaishnavas, he embraced them, and he wept. And gathering around him, the Vaishnavas pacified the Lord before departing for their own homes. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu openly revealed his true nature, and he simultaneously destroyed all the suffering of his devotees. The two moons, Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Sri Nityananda Prabhu, are my life and soul. And I, Vrindavan Das, sing the glories of their lotus feet.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare